putting in their hat in the ring for the water district. So, David, thank you for doing that. Thank you for speaking here today. Please help me welcome our own David St. Amand.
So I can go old school with the old-fashioned pointer, or I can go new school with the battery ones. Oh, there we go. I like to call this the retinator, because in a dark room in close quarters it can be kind of painful, so we won't use that. So you all met me. I started working in geology with my father when I was in high school. I helped him. I was the rod man when he did survey work, and attended, drove along with all of his geology field trips that he used to run for the China Lake Museum, not the China, sorry, the Matarango Museum. And then later, after I graduated from college with a degree in geology, we went into the seismic safety industry, and our motto used to be, if you have a fault, we'll find it. And we did. And we did Alquist Priolo studies, so High Desert Haven, yes. This presentation is actually originally created for High Desert Haven. It was going to be delivered at the beginning of August, but we're scheduled for the 30th of August right now. So there we go, enough of me. So Hawaiian Islands, originally the Sandwich Islands, named after the Earl Sandwich, who invented that delectable delight so he could play cards and eat beef at the same time. That being England not having a lot of silverware for their tables. So there's a pile of islands, there's 137 of them. It strings all the way out to Midway, but it does not include Midway. Midway Island is considered to be a territory of the United States, unincorporated. It's not attached to any state, basically a Navy base. And in the last 200 years, there has only been volcanic activity associated with the main island, and I'll talk about that a little bit in a minute. So let's see. Why is Hawaii there? There is a hot spot in the mantle. That means very hot liquid rock is rising to the surface and burning its way through the basaltic crust of the Pacific plate and causing eruptions on the surface. And there's some, hang on just a moment on the slides. It has created a chain of seamounts, and they go back quite a ways, 85 million years. And the Hawaii main island itself is probably somewhere between 1 million and 500,000 years old. And it's pretty recent. So the plate is drifting over the top of this hotspot, and that's why there's a chain of islands. In late 40s, early 50s, I think it was 1954, Pierre wrote a paper where he proposed that the Pacific Ocean was rotating. And he went to an International Geophysical Union meeting, and people shrieked at him. Geologists got up and called him insane. They shouted, they yelled. They absolutely went mad. 10 years later, continental drift was an accepted idea. Wow. He didn't get credit for that, but he did notice that there seemed to be things moving around on the surface. So some of the ideas I'm going to talk about are really actually pretty recent. Go ahead. So here we are. There's Hawaii. Let's see, there's Mary's house right there. There's Hawaii, and you can see a chain of seamount stretching all the way from Hawaii here, and then it makes a quick turn and it goes up to the Aleutian Trench. This part of the chain is called the Emperor Seamounts, and they're named after Japanese emperors. And out here, around there is Midway, and you can see there's this long chain. Something interesting to note, some big seamounts out here, and then they get really small. There's a couple of big ones here, and then now we have some big ones again. I'm going to imagine, I don't have the answer, but I'm going to imagine that the reason the islands are bigger there is that the plate moves at a different rate. And when it's moving slowly over the hotspot, it has a chance to build up large islands. And when it's scooting over the hotspot at a quick clip, it's only making small islands. That clip, by the way, is 32 miles per million years. You thought the DMV lines were slow? Next slide, please. So here's a close-up of Hawaii. You can see, it's hard to see from where you're sitting, but there you are, there's the main island. Then we have all the islands that people like to go to, and there's a whole series of seamounts, many of which are underwater. Next slide, please. And there's a satellite picture showing you basically the same scale, that there's all these seamounts that you can't see them. There's one right here, the rest of them, that one right there, actually on a computer shows up as just a very shallow part of the ocean. There's a mount there, and one there, and one there. So you can see that on the satellite picture. Next slide, please. So what do I mean? Here's the Earth, not to scale. Let's see, where's Mary's house? Right there, Mary's house is right there. So we have a solid nickel iron core, it's spinning around, and its interaction with the outer core generates the magnetic field that protects us from radiation. Then we have what they call the stiffer mantle. which is a basically plastic rock. It's not really hot enough to be liquid, but it's very close. So you took it and brought it to the surface, it's no longer under pressure, it would liquefy. And the globe is actually to scale. This little tiny piece right here, you can just barely see that dark line, you're standing on that. So you're basically floating around on top of a pile of really hot rock. If that doesn't keep you up at night, I don't know what will. So next slide, please. Here's a zero in on that one. Here we have crust, that little thin piece. Here's the inner core and the outer core, and we have convection cells going on in the mantle here, and where there's excess heat, it rises up towards the surface, and it burns its way through whatever that lithosphere is and makes the volcanic activity here. And there's a trench like this in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. It has a whole series of volcanoes, and one side of the Atlantic is moving that way, and one side of the Atlantic, the other side of the Atlantic is moving the other way. And at the continental margins, you see things like this. Assuming this is oceanic crust, it actually is heavier than the continental crust, and it gets pushed underneath, or the continental crust overrides it. The reason for that is the oceanic crust is basalt, which is iron rich, and the continental crust is aluminum rich, so it's lighter. Very good, so we have convection. Just like the pot of water on the stove, you have the burner going, you can see the boiling going on. Those are the hot spots. All right. Any questions? Good, all right, thank you. Next slide, please. I only have 100 slides to go, and I got 20 minutes. Cheryl has a series of increasingly obvious symbols she's going to give me, ending in Mary's favorite symbol, so I'm blocking the way here. So here we go, the Hawaiian Hotspot, and this is the oceanic crust on the Pacific Plate, and it's moving along this way, and you have this mantle plume, hot material coming up from underneath, and it's causing active volcanism on the Hawaiian Island. Now Maui is considered to be dormant. The volcano on Maui is dormant. 400 years ago or so it erupted, and they think that's because there's still, a pathway down for the mantle plume to come up and pop up underneath. But all these are extinct volcanoes out here. Next slide, please. There was a lovely picture of Hawaii. We're going to talk mostly about the main island from here on out. Next slide, please. One more, please. Experiencing technical issues. The computer does not like the message of my presentation, and will randomly stop itself from time to time.
And lost to figure out why.
Yeah, it's one of those gremlins, I think something like that.